I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Thursday, February the 15th, where we see these heavy feeder cattle starting to tail off in the price, even though there's still remarkably good demand for big stockers, your lighter stocker calves especially, and your lighter feeder cattle, despite how dry it is, how full the feedlots are, and the fact that we're heading into a time where market-ready fat cattle are going to be abundant. And we know that we're heading into a point that our fat cattle market is going to have to start tailing off, although we still have hopes to build it as big as we can before they start tearing it down. But you look at the board on Wednesday, April live cattle up 45 cents to end the day on Wednesday at 125.22. February spot live cattle up 82 cents at 127.65, and we might get our 28 this week and should get more. March feeder cattle up 90 cents to end the day on Wednesday at 148.17. April up 92 cents at 150.42, and on your feeder cattle board, based on an 800-pound steer, it's progressively higher for the next 8 months or so. Although I do think that whenever we start getting into these heavier supplies of fat cattle and the fat cattle market starts fading, it's going to take your bigger feeder cattle with it, despite the board being strong. But fat cattle trade, we haven't really seen anything at all. You know, we had that secret trade last week on Friday night after dark. We had a little bit of trade at a higher price, I think just from some regionals that didn't really realize how much market had traded over the weekend, and it was 128.5 to 129.5. That was on Monday morning. Then we had a little bit more trade on Tuesday, 126 to 127. But the market's going to be higher this week. It will sure be the 128 that we should have gotten last week, and I don't see why guys shouldn't dig their heels in for $1.30. We've been hoping to get to 130 and get to that point before we started getting into all that pressure from the heavier supplies of market-ready cattle, and this may be the week of the opportunity to do that. It may be one of the last weeks, but Fed Cattle Exchange had a real light run. The online slaughter cattle auction had only 255 head, no sales at all, one PO that was under what the market's already being offered. So they're not trying to help that deal out at all. But you look at your feeder market, your real-time index on Beef Market Central, based on the weighted average from 7 to 900 pound steers up through the 12-state region. Late in the day on Wednesday was sitting at 147.82, basically steady but down just 3 cents, and I think that's just an even split between those cattle weighing from 7 to 800 pounds being a little bit stronger, and those weighing from up to 8 to 900 pounds being a little weaker, and then they're just kind of coming together and being about steady for the average on the 800 pounder. But the markets have not been real volatile on a cash basis here the last couple of weeks, and you can see that in your real-time index at 147.82. CME index last reported at 147.62. So real tight right in there and settling down. But you look at some auction markets on Wednesday. OKC West in El Reno, Oklahoma. I was there again on Wednesday. Had a nice run of feeder cattle, 12,500 head. Enjoying watching the sale there. Just such a well-run sale that, you know, the gates open, the ring swells up with cattle, and they go out, they opens again, and they do it again, just over and over, and just big, nice strings of cattle, mostly off really dry, short wheat. And it's amazing, you know, we've talked about this in years past, when that wheat really gets rank, it gets pretty washy, and most of it goes out the back end of them. But when it's really short, they actually do well on that. So you know, you're kind of just juggling that. You don't want it too washy, and of course you want something to eat out there. There wasn't anything much for them to eat out there this year, but what little short wheat they had, gosh, the cattle just did really good on it, and a lot of the cattle in there coming pretty fleshy, and when they loaded them, it looked like they were loading them off of an asphalt parking lot, because just hardly anything to see out there, and those cattle have just been digging down in the ground and pulling that short wheat out, and it does them a lot of good. But you look at your market at OKC West and El Reno, feeder steers weighing under 8.5 were steady to $3 higher, while the heavier weight, the big heavy feeder steers weighing over 850 and up in the nines, $1 to $2 lower. And like I said, the starch has kind of gone out of these big heavy feeders because we see that the market's going to fade on them before we can get them done. Feeder heifers though $1 to $3 higher, and if you remember on Tuesday at the calf sale, they sold the calves $3 to $8 higher. Several other markets on Wednesday. Winter Livestock in Dodge City, Kansas, 2,400 head there, good steady market there. St. Joe, Missouri, they had 3,400 there at St. Joe Stockyards. Calves were $8 to $12 higher, and feeder cattle $2 to $5 higher, and they had a good sale last week, so a good test of that. Just a lot of good farmer feeder demand working up in the northern part of the Midwest and the northern plains. Huss, Platte Valley Livestock Market in Kearney, Nebraska, 4,900 head there. Steers weighing under 800 pounds there, $6 to $8 higher. And those are not all feeder cattle. Like we said, guys are looking for big stockers this time of year to take advantage of the early spring grass when it comes. And so a lot of those would have been stocker type cattle. But $6 to $8 higher on those weighing under 8. And then when you got up over 800 pounds, $2 to $6 lower. But the heifers were steady to $4 lower there. But a lot of your 8-weight steers selling mostly from 143 to 145 in your good bunches. So that's a pretty decent market. But when you get working up towards 900 pounds and over, it doesn't take long for these feeder steers to get down into the 130s. But a couple of individual quotes there. Torrington Livestock Markets in Torrington, Wyoming, had a great sale there on Wednesday, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Look at this string of calves here. 153 head of steer calves, weighed 524 pounds at $214 1/4. That is a monster price there on a big string of lightweight steer calves. And you think they can't sell calves out east there? You look at North Arkansas Livestock Market in Green Forest, Arkansas, and you might think they wouldn't even be able to make a load. Look at here, 124 head of steers weighed 650 pounds at 12:30 in the afternoon, bring 158.50. That's your feeder flash for Thursday.